Hi everyone, welcome to another Bixly Tech Tuesday. My name is Alexandra and we are extremely excited to bring this same content to you in a brand new format. Today, Cris, CEO of Bixly, and Andrew, COO of Bixly, are having a conversation around the topic of Bixly's core tech stack. This is something that we have been working in for a really long time. We have a deep expertise in, and we're really excited to share with you what it is and why we work in it, and why we continue to have open and honest conversations with our clients about that tech stack.
Our core tech stack is Python, Django, and then on the front end, we use Angular and React.
Briefly, we didn't actually start off as a Python shop. We actually were, dabbling in .NET and C# and PHP as well as Python, but we realized very quickly that if you can have a focus, you're going to be much better. Python was very saturated with the overseas market, but was not big in basically US.
They're both pretty mature technologies at this point. They have very wide adoption. And so we wanted something that was going to be able to allow us to do rapid JavaScript development and be progressive, and also just work with technologies that there's going to be lots of developers out there, lots of people that can do that. And so we wanted our clients to know that they're working with mature, scalable technologies that are widely adopted in the industry.
We were seeing a small pivot and change in the tech industry where everything at the time, 2007, 2008, we're kind of moonlighting these projects, getting Bixly up and running. Everything was all pretty much built on the back end. And you had designers really that were doing HTML, CSS, but they were really just doing design. It was very heavy lifting on the side of the developers. We both got a push internally from our design team that said, hey, we kind of want to be a little more involved in the actual coding process. And we're seeing this pivot and this change in the industry to being able to handle things a bit more on the front end with JavaScript, as you mentioned.
Yeah, on the front end, we're familiar with Vue. On the back end, we've done a lot with Node. I think we've done some with PHP and whatnot, but really Vue and Node would kind of be the other ones that we would touch on. Oh, and then Ionic too, if we're doing mobile. So we'll do Ionic so that we can use JavaScript web-based technologies to build a mobile app. And I think we've done some with React Native too.
Yeah, we have. And Ionic specifically, that's something in the last couple years that we've really started to push much heavier into. We've had the projects over the years, but we realize that there's a lot of applications out there. People come to us and they think that I need to write this with native Swift code for iOS, and I need to use something like Kotlin for Java, and Android side. And that's not necessarily the case, and it starts to just push the code bases apart. So being able to handle our lightweight applications with JavaScript like Ionic, it's really been a good sell for us, but ultimately a way to get those MVP, we always talk about MVP, get those MVP type products off the ground for our clients and not suddenly just get deep into a sea of two code bases.
Right. So. And on the Ionic side, it allows us to be cross-platform for Android and iOS, and also it allows us to develop in web-based JavaScript technologies for mobile, which we're largely a web-based shop, so you're not having all these separate platforms to deal with.
The biggest thing is you're working with my company for now, and I would ultimately like you to continue to engage with myself and Andrew and everyone here, but we know that chances are you might have an in-house team that you're going to be collaborating with. You might need to bring in another team from outside or whatever the reasons, and so tech stack is important. If I just build your project in something that only we can control and something that we know, use some bleeding edge cusp technology, if you ever have to go somewhere or even hire internally, you might actually be pigeonholed a little bit as a client. So that I think is a kind of foremost one of the reasons that we have those technology conversations, is to make sure that you understand the breadth of the project a little bit and why you would want or not want to build in a particular language. And in this case, it's that longevity of the project and really extensibility of moving between teams. A lot of times clients may hear something and it may or may not necessarily be the truth. So just to kind of re-engage and really allow them to make the choices for themselves and have some ownership in the application is also extremely important for me.
We would have conversations about who is their user base, how are they going to be digesting this information, does it make more sense for them to do it over a web browser or a mobile app? So those are going to be some pretty early conversations, and that's really only after we understand what their overarching objective is and what success really looks like for their project. Once we figure that out, then we can move into technology type questions, and it's really all about delivery to their client base.
Yeah, and there could even be those industry-specific type questions that the client may or may not be aware of. So if they're, for instance, in medical industry or dealing with, accounting, bookkeeping, that sort of thing, there might be a certain amount of, personally identifiable information that is very important. It's always important to keep that kind of information secure, but if you're dealing, again, with the medical industry or banking industry, you can kind of pivot away from language stacks and get all, over to the server side of stuff. And how are we going to host this? We can't just spin this up maybe necessarily on a Heroku instance because of the fact that that's not going to be PCI compliant. So we need to talk about PCI compliance and things like that. So those are other things that if we don't talk through it with the client and understand their application and they don't fully explain those to us or to any dev shop, you can start finding yourself going down a road of a technology that's not going to support the product, have an insecure hosting instance, and ultimately you're going to have some really angry customers at the end.
Thank you for joining us for this first episode of Bixly Tech Tuesday. If you have any questions at all about our tech stack or anything else Andrew and Cris touched on today, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. And if you're interested in getting started on your project, you can always reach out to us at bixly.com and even set up a free consultation to get the conversation started. Until next time, this has been an episode of Bixly Tech Tuesday.